Well, I was tempted to start today by saying y'all, because I've been staying down south of the Mason-Dixon for the last couple of weeks. I was down in Winter City in Kentucky, and then I went down to North Carolina, and next week I go down to Orlando, which really isn't, I mean, it's south on the map, but we don't typically talk a lot of southern down there. Some people may dispute that, because anything that's down south automatically talks funny. But I'm not going to go that way. I do have to laugh because Jason Dreher was with us on this mission trip, and the last day we were standing outside the kitchen area getting things wrapped up. And I will tell you one thing about my wife. I love my wife. Let me just preface that by saying this. That's never good. These women say, that is never good. Don't you ever do that to me. And but my wife, when she hangs around the southern dialect, she has a tendency to allow that to permeate and filter in. And be in prayer, because this week we're going to be around her sister. That ought to lead to prayer itself. But her sister speaks strongly the southern dialect. And when Susan gets around that, it just begins to come out of her like Jesus did it. And it's not good. So, but Jason Dreher, the last day, we were talking, and he said, table. And I said, what'd you just say? He goes, oh. So then he texted me on the way, and he says, I finally crossed the Mason-Dixon line. So, but anyhow, well, I noticed while I'm gone that a couple of things took place. First of all, that Jay shaved his beard. And Jay, just a word of encouragement, because we're going to talk about encouragement today. It makes you look younger. So, yeah. I was going to say attractive, but that might be taken the wrong way. But encouragement is important, isn't it? And we all need encouragement in some way or another. We need to encourage each other. I can remember some of the times that I've been encouraged growing up, and one of the times that really impacted my life, I shared this story in the first service, and perhaps you've heard it before. Just encouraged me and listen again. And I was a kid about 11 years of age, and we had a rabbit by the name of Cinnamon, and Cinnamon lived in the backyard in a cage. We would let this rabbit inside the house periodically, and this rabbit, for some reason, was drawn to electrical cords. It would chew through plugged-in electrical cords. Maybe that's why its coat was always so fluffy. I don't know. And but Cinnamon, one day we came home from school, and somebody had poisoned Cinnamon. You could see it was a violent thing. The cage was all discombobulated and so forth. And being 11 years of age, we loved that rabbit, and I can remember just being devastated by that. Now, my dad, 6'5", imposing figure, especially to an 11-year-old boy, and I can remember I was in the living room, sitting in the dark corner, sitting on the couch, and I was crying because Cinnamon had died. And my dad, I remember the shadow of the figure comes and stands in the doorway between the family room and the living room, and I'm over there trying to wipe the tears away. Because one thing I can tell you about my dad is, first of all, I'd never seen him cry at that point. And I could count on my hand and take away a couple of digits the number of times I heard my dad say, I love you, growing up. Now, that's not an indictment against my dad, but that's just the way it was. I mean, he had 3 brothers. There's 4 boys plus my dad, and my mom was the female, unless you count the female dog. And so there wasn't a lot of this huggy-lovey kind of stuff, okay? We communicated by giving each other, chest bumps and thumps on the head kind of thing. The DiNozzo slap in the back of the noggin. And some of you understand what I just said. And so we never really had that kind of relationship where I love you. Now, ironically, as we've progressed and gotten older, I talk to my dad on the phone usually weekly, and it's a race at the end of the conversation now who's going to say I love you first, which is just a hoot to me. And I also made a commitment to myself that when I had kids, and I've been blessed with 3 wonderful kids, that I would constantly shower them with the words I love you, to the point where they say, Dad, I know, I'm tired of that kind of thing. So there wasn't a lot of lovey-dovey crying in our house. It was a suck it up and deal with it kind of thing. Imposing figure in the doorway, rabbit's dead, I'm on the couch, tears, see the imposing figure, I start to wipe these tears away, my dad comes over, and I'm thinking, oh boy, I'm going to hear it now. He sits on the couch next to me. He puts his arm around me, he says, you upset? I said, yeah. He says, it's okay to cry. I cried like a baby. I still get tears in my eyes when I think about it. I cried like a baby because in the midst of that there was encouragement. We think encouragement is something that's going to make you feel positive. I didn't feel positive in that moment, but I felt secure. I felt safe. Some of the things I think we lose in life is the ability, I won't say the ability, maybe the desire or the implementation might be a better way to say it, to encourage one another. And yet when we read Scripture, we see time and again how God encourages His people. We're going to talk about one of those ways today. We need encouragement in life. It might be encouragement to stay in school, or encouragement to stay married, or encouragement just to get out of bed in the morning. Some of us are at crossroads in our lives and we don't know which direction to go. Some of us lack the confidence to do what God has called us to do. Anyone? We feel like we're inadequate, don't we? Like there's absolutely no way. And yet what we've done is we've diminished who God is when we say there's no way that He could ever accomplish His will and purpose in us. What God has called us to is something very specific, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today as well. But we lack confidence that we can do all God has called us to do, and we feel like what my friend, he says it this way. He says, confidence is your last thought. Confidence is your last thought before reality hits. And sometimes that's where we're at. So this morning, what I want us to do is jump into our last lesson in the book of Haggai. It's in chapter 2, and here what we find is really words of encouragement. Now, words of encouragement can come in a variety of forms. It can come from a father sitting down and saying it's okay to cry. It can come from a pat on the back or a smile. It can come from someone who's willing simply to listen as you pour your heart out to them. It can come from cheerful words as well. But God encouraged His people with this vision. And what I love about this text this morning as we jump ahead into it is that God inspires through the vision of the future. Now, to go through this text today, we're actually going to do it a little bit differently than I normally would. We're going to sum it up in 4 simple lessons, okay? And the 4 simple lessons begin with this lesson, that the value of faithfulness. There's value in faithfulness. How many people believe there's value in faithfulness? Okay? I think that faithfulness is something that we struggle with in our culture today, in staying committed in many ways. We see this lesson described for us in the first, actually I was going to say the first 2 verses, actually verse 20 and 21a, the beginning of verse 21 of chapter 2 of Haggai. And it says this. It says, on the same day, December 18th, and let me just say, I just think it's so cool and so specific. On the same day, December 18th, the Lord sent this second message to Haggai and said, tell Zerubbabel, the governor of Judah, pause. He didn't tell pause. That was my pause in there, by the way. I pause here because I find this so fascinating. You sit here and say, well, Kevin, that doesn't make a lot of sense. What does that have to do with anything? I love this because as we've gone through this study and we've seen how God has brought His message and how God has brought words to His people, it has always been to the group. It's always been to His people. But God is not speaking specifically right now to the people. He's saying, tell Zerubbabel. Who is Zerubbabel? He is the governor of Judah. He's saying, listen, leader, I want you to pay attention. You know, it's been said that everything rises and falls upon leadership. It's why some companies have success. It's why other companies fail. It's the reason why a guy by the name of Sam Walton, perhaps you've heard of him. If not, I'm sure you've shopped in some of his stores. It's the reason why he could take dime stores, just a few dime stores, and turn it into this business that is global. To become the richest man in America, it's not a fluke, it's leadership. But sometimes leaders can get discouraged. And evidently that's what has happened here to Zerubbabel. He has become discouraged. And who can blame him? I mean, after all, he's the one who was given the responsibility of bringing the people back from captivity. Remember, before captivity, they were doing their own thing. The people of God weren't following God. And so God brings judgment. How does he do that? By bringing the Babylonian army. The big bad Babylonian army comes and brings destruction. But not only does he bring destruction, those who remain are taken into captivity. That was in the book of Habakkuk that we spent time in. And now we're on the backside of that, where now they've been released from captivity and they're going back to Judah, they're going back to Jerusalem, and they're going to kind of see what's happened. And what they find is total, complete devastation. The landmarks in Jerusalem are gone. Now think about that. How do we have a tendency, when we're locals, how do we have a tendency to give directions? We do it by landmarks, don't we? I can remember some of the hurricanes that I lived through in Florida, and some of the experiences I've had through some of those hurricanes, is landmarks would be gone, and it would be just surreal. You don't know where to turn when you're driving your car, because that is no longer there. All the landmarks are gone. Not only are the landmarks gone, but the city wall, which is there to provide security, is gone. And so is the magnificent temple that Solomon built. That, remember, people would come from all over the known world to see because it was so magnificent. They began the rebuilding process. We've talked about that. There was great celebration when they finished the foundation of the temple. Remember that? A party broke out. We weren't invited, but it happened. You may also remember that they stopped. Why? Because there was oppression. People were coming against them. Who was coming against them? You remember? Who was the enemy of Israel? Who? The Samaritans, right? They didn't like them. They come against them. And so what happens is they give up. They stop working. And they stop working for 16 years. And then they start again, but quickly they get discouraged. And the leader's dealing with it all the way through. I don't know how long it's been since you've taken a look at the presidents. You know, the President Obama, no matter what you think about his policies and so forth, this is not a political debate. But one thing I notice is he's got a whole lot more gray hair in 8 years than he did when he started. And then you go back and you look at the pictures of the presidents who have served, whether it's been 4 years or 8 years, it doesn't really matter. The color of their hair changes dramatically, doesn't it? Because of the stress of the job. It's said of leaders that even though they may be surrounded by large groups of people, that they feel all alone because of the weight and the pressure that falls upon them. Perhaps that's how you feel today. Like you're all alone. You feel like Elijah from the Old Testament. And you begin to cry out, Lord, I am all alone. I'm all that's left. Let me just tell you that God says the same thing to you that he said to him, but also to Zerubbabel. You're not alone. I've watched you through your victories. I've watched you through your sorrows. Not only have I watched you, but I've been there with you. I've walked this journey with you. I've been by your side the whole time. So fear not, I am with you. We know that, don't we? Do we believe that God is with us no matter where we are? Anybody? Okay, most of us. Do we believe that God not only is with us now, but he's walked the path ahead of us? That's scriptural. But have you ever, like me, felt like God's nowhere to be found? Absolutely. And that's what they're feeling here. And it's difficult in those moments to actually move forward. Let me ask you a question. You know what was the most difficult part of rebuilding the temple? It's putting the next stone in place. That's the hardest part. Sometimes it's so difficult just to keep going on. It's like when you're hit deep in alligators and there's no way to drain the swamp, okay? That's a southern one. Would you like me to slow down on that one? It's like when you're hit deep in alligators and there's no way to drain the swamp. Okay, is that better? I can talk about New Orleans down there in Louisiana, but we're not going to go down, all right? That's how Zerubbabel feels. He feels like he's hit deep in alligators and there's no way to drain the swamp. He's fighting fears, not only internally, but fears of the people as well. He looks at his discouraged, fickle workers. One moment they're ready, and the next moment it's like, well, we really don't want to. and it leads to frustration. He listens not only to his workers, but he listens to the constant opposition that comes his way. And then on top of that, he looks at the task that's before him and he's like, oh, really? And he feels like many of us do. So often in life, we just want to crawl into a corner, right? Close the door and wait till Jesus comes. That's not how we're called to live life. And so at that point is when God comes to Haggai and says, listen, I want you to tell Zerubbabel something. I've got a message for him. And the message is just keep doing your job. Keep doing your job, because not only am I watching you, I am with you each and every day. There's a great quote I came across a few years back. It's by someone by the name of James Baldwin. It's in your notes here this morning. And it says this. It says, beyond talent lie all the usual words: discipline, love, and luck. But most of all, endurance. Endurance. But what is endurance? Endurance is what it takes to do anything great in this world. Some of us require endurance just to get out of bed in the morning. Certainly it requires endurance to face the world head on. We need endurance to be able to handle the task, no matter what it is that's set before us, with all the strength that we can possibly muster. You say, well, Kevin, it's so difficult. I don't know how I'm ever going to do it. You look at the condition of the world around us. Let's just admit this. The world around us is screwed up, is it not?
Oh, yeah.
The world is a mess. Just think about the last couple of weeks. My hometown, Orlando. You think they had a rough patch there? Not only was the Christian music artist killed, you heard about that one, right? That was about 5 miles from where we used to live. And then about 3 miles from where we used to live was that other, I'll call it a terrorist attack that took place. Wickedness. And then you had the little toddler boy who was killed by the alligator. And then you look at what's happened globally. My son is traveling. He's been blessed. He's traveling to 13 countries in 10 weeks. Pretty cool. He's in India right now. He's roughing it at some 5-star resort. I asked him if it's nicer than his college dorm. The answer was yes. He's getting college credit. But you hear all of this, and Susan and I were just so glad he got out of Europe, because he went to France and then he went to England. It's like, I trust God, but God get him out of there, okay? There's that sense of uneasiness because you see the chaos of the world around us. Let's be honest, when we see the chaos of the world around us, it's easy to get discouraged, isn't it? The challenge for us is this, though. Don't get discouraged. See, God doesn't call us to be successful. God calls us to be faithful. And if we're faithful long enough, then we will be successful in the end. No matter what is happening in the world around us, let me just say this. Christianity is under attack. The Word of God is under attack. And it's not just by the outside world. Christianity and the infallibility and the inerrancy of the Word of God, which we believe in here at Hannah Church, is under attack even by so-called spiritual leaders. It's under attack. And it's very easy to get discouraged. But God has called us to be faithful. And if we're faithful, then we will be successful in the end. Moms and dads, let me give words of encouragement to you. Some of you may be sitting in situations right now where you say, you know what, I've raised my kid better than that. I've shown them what it means to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. We've talked about that. They know what truth is. Be faithful. Be faithful. Be faithful. Success will come. For people who feel like they're lost in the shuffle, like chaos is all around them, just do what God has called you to do. It's not time for the church to hold itself up in the four walls of a building. It's time for us to get out and stand for what's right, to stand for what's true, to stand upon the Word of God. So often we go into the hibernation mode, as I said, and just wait for Jesus to come again. That's not what we've been called to do. We've been called to be faithful and to do what He's called us, to step out. How can we do that? Well, because of what the second lesson in this passage has to teach us. And what it teaches us is the power of God's providence. Providence. That's a word that we hear periodically in church. I will tell you it's different than a place in Rhode Island, okay? But providence means this. It's the means by which God directs all things. Catch that. It's the means by which God directs all things toward a worthy purpose, which means His will must finally prevail. God's will must prevail. Do you believe that? He's God. We're not. Verse 21 through 22, it tells us this. It says, "Tell Zerubbabel, the governor of Judah, that I am about to shake the heavens and the earth. I will overthrow royal thrones and destroy the power of foreign kingdoms. I will overturn their chariots and riders. The horses will fall. Their riders will kill each other." Now, most of us are not very good at telling the future. Am I right? Certainly, if you're a weather forecaster here today, you don't do a very good job. Just let me throw that out there, okay? I know you're doing your best. But one thing I know is this, is that when God declares something to happen in the future, it will happen. And what does He say in this text? Look at it again. It says, I am about to shake the heavens. I will overthrow royal thrones and destroy the power of foreign kingdoms. I will overturn their chariots and riders. The horses will fall and their riders will kill each other. This is a certainty. We wonder if the market's going to go up or down. Or that great cosmic question, will the Eagles ever win the Super Bowl, right? Is that bad? No, they won't. I agree with you. Or we attend a funeral and we wonder when our time is going to come. We're healthy today, we could have a heart attack tomorrow. We could have peace today, and we could have war tomorrow. Nothing is certain in this ever-changing world except God is God, and we are not. Solomon, who built this incredible temple, ponders the same predicament. He writes these words in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 11 through 12. He says, I have observed something I have observed something else under the sun. The fastest runner doesn't always win the race. The strongest warrior doesn't always win the battle. The wise sometimes go hungry, and the skillful are not necessarily wealthy. Those who are educated don't always lead successful lives. It is all decided by chance, by being in the right place at the right time. People can never predict when hard times might come. Like fish in a net or birds in a trap, people are caught by sudden tragedy. The point is, we expect to live long, happy lives. I think of our recent high school graduates, one of which was my daughter. And I look at our high school graduates, and I will tell you that I am so impressed with our group of high school graduates. To see how God has worked in their life, and to see how they have a willingness, and I would even say many of them a passion to share Jesus Christ, the gospel message of Jesus Christ, and that excites me. There's tremendous potential that lies in their lives. But one thing that they need to remember is that their days, even though they think they might live forever, could end tomorrow, could end today. I can remember when I was in high school, I graduated in 1982, Colonial High School, home of the mighty Grenadiers. And you can go ahead and Google that when you're done. What is a Grenadier? But that's where I was. And I can remember when I graduated, I thought I could tackle anything. I had tremendous, thoughts of what I was going to accomplish in life. And I look at the graduating class this year, and I see a bright, bright future. But one of the things that they need to remember, and all of us need to remember, is that our life is in God's hands. He holds the power of life. He holds the power of death. When God opens a door, it stays open. When He closes the door, there is nothing that anybody can do to ever do anything about that door. When he overthrows a king, the king stays overthrown. It shouldn't frighten us. In fact, what it should do if we are biblical Christians is it ought to give us tremendous confidence. That as we face the problems of life, that if we are wise and we humble ourselves before the Lord of heaven's armies, who is the Lord of heaven's armies, he's the one who's more powerful than anything in heaven or on earth. And when we humble ourselves before him and we seek to please him in everything that we do, if we are faithful, then we will have victory. Not because of who we are, but because of who he is. There's a third thing that we need to remember in our text. And I love this reminder. The reminder is that he is going to someday overthrow earthly kingdoms. There's coming a day, it said in our text, when he is going to shake the heavens and the earth. In that day, hear me very clearly, everything that's made by man is going to come crashing down. Everything that's made by man will come crashing down. Revelation chapter 16 lays this out there very well. It connects with the battle of Armageddon just before Jesus returns. It says this. It says, "Then the seventh angel poured out his bowl into the air, and a mighty shout came from the throne in the temple, saying, 'It is finished.' Then the thunder crashed and rolled, and lightning flashed, and a great earthquake struck, the worst since people were placed on earth." Don't miss that phrase. It says, "The great city of Babylon split into three sections, and the city of many nations fell into heaps of rubble. So God remembered all of Babylon's sins, and he made her drink the cup that was filled with the wine of his fierce wrath. And every island disappeared, and all the mountains were leveled." Paris, leveled. New York City, in ruins. Tokyo is a disaster area. Think about that. Miami is in flames. Phoenix is in ashes. Harrisburg is in rubble. Everything that has been made by man is gone. Collapses before man's eyes. How incredible is that? John says it this way. In 1 John chapter 2, verse 17, he said, "The world and its desires pass away." Jesus said it this way. By the way, we should be listening to the words of Jesus, right? He says, "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away." The best and the brightest amongst us will someday die, and all that we do will eventually be forgotten. Well, Kevin, I thought this was supposed to be encouraging. That doesn't sound very encouraging. Here's the encouragement. God doesn't leave his people there. God does not leave his people there. Instead, he closes with another lesson in this text. And that lesson teaches the certainty of eternal reward. If you are a believer in Jesus Christ, there is a reward in your eternity. That's pretty good, isn't it? Woohoo, right? There's excitement. I'll take it as a yes. Okay. God's final message in Haggai chapter 2, verse 23 says this, "But when this happens, says the Lord of heaven's armies." There's that phrase again. He says, "I will honor you, Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, my servant. I will make you like a signet ring on my finger, says the Lord, for I have chosen you. I, the Lord of heaven's armies, have spoken." Now, many of us are not familiar with the concept of a signet ring. And perhaps the most contemporary thing that I could think of was when I worked for a defense contractor in Orlando. I was given a level of clearance that allowed me to read some classified information, but also had opportunity to go in and work in areas or have access to areas where secret items were being developed and being built, if you would. And so I had a level of security that if I didn't have, I would not be able to get into these places or read some of the documents that were available. I needed to have an appropriate clearance to do that. Now, I understand that signet rings are also coming back and becoming more popular as people create an insignia that represents their family, whatever that may be, and they wear that for decorations. We're not talking about a decorative ring here. What we're talking about is something in biblical times where the king would actually take it, and on a ring he would have the seal of authority. And he would take that ring and if there was a document that needed to be passed, or if someone needed something for safe passage, to say, yes, this person is here on my behalf. This person is a representative of the king. Then he would take a blob of wax and he would put it on that piece of paper, and he would then take that ring and put that ring and press that into the wax. And when the wax dried, or when it cooled, I guess it would be a better way to say it, then that symbol of the king's authority would be there, and that person then could go and have safe passage. In fact, the signet ring was much more than just a decorative ring, but here's what it signified. And I had to look this up, but here's what it says. It signifies honor, authority, ownership, preservation, special relationship, and also personal guarantee of safety. And so God says to him, let me read that text again. But when this happens, says the Lord of heaven's armies, I will honor you, Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, my servant. I will make you like a signet ring on my finger, for I have chosen you, the Lord of heaven's armies. I have spoken. You got that? Something interesting, though, is this. That Zerubbabel had a grandfather by the name of Jehoiachin. And many years earlier, he was the king who was a wicked king. He did not serve the Lord. And in Jeremiah 22, God pronounces a curse upon him. He says this. He says, as surely as I live, says the Lord, I will abandon you. Let me just pause here for a moment and say that those are words that you do not want to hear from God, right? I will abandon you. And yet the Lord says, I will abandon you, Jehoiachin, son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Even if you were the signet ring on my right hand, I would pull you off. I will hand you over to those who seek to kill you, those you desperately fear, to King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. Remember, they're bad dudes. And the mighty Babylonian army. I will expel you and your mother from this land, and you will die in a foreign country, not in your native land. That was a tremendous indictment. You will never again return to the land you yearn for. Why is this man Jehoiachin like a discarded broken jar? Why are he and his children to be exiled to a foreign land? Oh, earth, earth, earth. Listen to this message from the Lord. This is what the Lord says. Let the record show that this man, Jehoiachin, was childless. Did you catch that? Let the record show that he was childless. Here's the interesting part. He is a failure, for none of his children... Well, wait a minute. I thought you said he was childless. No, it says the record will show that you are childless. You may have kids, but from this point forward, I'm not going to recognize him. Let the record show. He is failure, for none of his children will succeed him on the throne of David to rule over Judah. So Jehoiachin is being told that not only will he be punished, but all his descendants will be punished, and that none of them will ever sit on the throne of David. But God now comes to his grandson, Zerubbabel, and says, I will make you like a signet ring. Don't miss this. This is Old Testament, and yet here we see the grace of God at work. The grace of God at work. Because of Zerubbabel's faithfulness, the curse on his family has been lifted. And the signet ring is now back on God's finger. Now, Zerubbabel never sat on David's throne. But one of his descendants did. In fact, if you were to go to Matthew chapter 1, verse 12, it mentions the name in the genealogy. Zerubbabel's name is in the genealogy of Jesus Christ. Zerubbabel never made it to the throne. But his, let's see, it's 9 great. So it's great, 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 great grandson did. And we know this because Angel Gabriel said this of Jesus in Luke chapter 1. He said, he will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his ancestor David. And he will reign over Israel forever. His kingdom will never end. 500 years later, a baby is born in Bethlehem who is a lineal descendant of Zerubbabel. God's signet ring. How cool is our God? Let me just ask you a question. If you heard that, would that give you words of encouragement? That because of my faithfulness, even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of what seems to be total disarray, I've made a decision to be faithful. God honors that faithfulness. I say this to many people, but I believe with all my heart that God honors integrity. I believe that. You can have the world crashing around you. You can't worry about that. Only thing that you can do is do what God has called you to do. Be faithful to who you are and what God wants you to be. God honors that. And because Zerubbabel was faithful, he receives these words of encouragement. And while he may never have the opportunity to sit on the throne, he knows that God's word is true. Wow. You and I have no idea God's plans for our lives. But one thing I do know is this, is that God is faithful and he calls us to do the same, to be the same. So I want to close with a couple of words of application. The first thing is this: those who look to this world for lasting approval must eventually be disappointed, because the best things of this world must one day disappear. I didn't have any typos there, I don't think. But the best things of this world must, they must disappear. Wow. Everything that man builds means nothing. The second application is this, is those who look to God, to the God who created the world, will find the safety and security that will last forever. We build so much stuff to make us feel good about ourselves, to make us feel safe and secure. Instead, what we need to do is look to the God who created the world. And when we do that, when we give our lives to him, we find the safety and security that lasts forever. We only have one short life to live. Some of you are looking around and say, well, there's some old people here. You know, the older I get, the more I realize that 50 years is not long. Can I get an amen? Amen. We don't know when our life is going to end, but we do know who's faithful. So the challenge for us is to build our life on the things that will last forever. And when we do that, you will never be disappointed. One final word is this: Jesus Christ is coming again. Let me say it again. Jesus Christ is coming again. Amen. We believe that. The question is, do you know him? That's the most important question I could ever ask you. It's perhaps the most important question. In fact, it is the most important question you could ever answer. You know, I'm not big on bumper stickers, especially Christian bumper stickers. I don't like bumper stickers because they make my car look uglier than it already is. But I don't like Christian bumper stickers a lot of times, because then I have to, you know, not cut people off and that kind of thing. Drive the line would be a better way to say it. But walk the line at work, I guess. I mean, the last thing I need is I love Jesus bumper sticker on my car and then get angry with somebody. And let's be honest, we all do at times get angry with somebody, right? But perhaps you've seen the bumper sticker that says, "No Jesus," K-N-O-W, Jesus, K-N-O-W, life. Have you seen that one? No Jesus, no life, meaning no. And then it says, no, N-O Jesus, no life. And so, no Jesus, no life. No Jesus, no life. I gotta tell you, I kind of like that one. Don't go out and buy it for me. I'm not going to put it on my car. But Jesus came to give us life. In fact, we read in John 10:10, it says the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Jesus says, I have come. Why? That they may have life. But not just life, but to have it abundantly. If you don't have Jesus, then you don't even know what life is about. So my challenge as we close today is to put your hopes in Jesus Christ. Believe that he's died for your sins, that he rose from the dead to give us eternal life, and when you believe that, you will be saved. No matter what's happening around us. And we live in a chaotic world. And let me just newsflash, it's not going to get better. but your faithfulness can. So let's work on that. In fact, let's work on that by going and agreeing that we're going to be a part of that ministry on the 11th. Well, I keep talking about that, don't I? But we need to be there. Church for some of us needs to be more than just a Sunday morning experience. Is that too bold?
That's awesome.
Oh, good. Shane likes it. But we need to do more than just be Sunday morning experience people. If Christ has truly transformed your life, then don't you want to share it? We can do that on the 11th. Let's show people that they matter. Not only for the here and now, but that we want to spend eternity with them. How cool would that be? Let's pray together.